Escaping from crucifixion is very hard or an almost impossible task. But we are going to be looking at it categorically in this video, and we are going to be exploring the process or what it would take for an individual to be able to escape from crucifixion. Most times crucifixion is, according to historians, most times crucifixion is reserved for very dangerous people. Dangerous in the sense that those people must always be like great rebels or leaders of an opposing sect of people that are standing against Rome. In this context, we are just analyzing Roman crucifixion. So once a person, an individual is crucified, that person that is crucified is not always a mediocre person. Is not someone that is just regular kind of charlatan, or sometimes it can be a very notorious criminal that has already been given that gave a lot of trouble to the society. So it's just like whenever a crucified person is displayed, it's just like a warning sign to others that will try to do what the person have done. So, and this also has to put it into anyone that is watching the perspective of the fact that the person that is being crucified is always a strong person, is a strong person, most times a very tough person. When someone is crucified, nail is driven into his hand. Most times it's always men, so I'll use his hand. Nail is driven into his hand, and it will pierce through the bone and into the hard wood, the very tough wood that will serve as the plane. For you to drive your hand out of that kind of scenario where a nail is already fixed to your hand and up to your bone, is going to take a lot of strength. It's going to, most times, if you want to weigh it and say what is the equivalent of a nail that is on a man's hand or on a man's wrist, most times is on the wrist, what will be the weight equivalent? Most times, for you to drag your hand out of that cross, you have to be able to have enough strength up to, let's say, 500 kg and capacity strength to drag your hand, plus the pain and the heavy injury, because as you are dragging it, it's as if up to 500 kg weight is on your wrist, because your wrist has already been subjected or fixed to the wood. So individual has to pull his hand in such a way, with such great strength, that his hand has to come out with a lot of force. And this thing has a lot of things to do to the wrist. It can cause a major fracture to the wrist. Without an external assistant or someone that will help you to bring it out, I doubt it's almost impossible for an individual to drag his hand out from that fixture or from that posture. And to remind you again, the most times the leg is also impaled in such a very uncomfortable position. Forget what you are seeing in most of the drawing. The most famous person that was crucified, of course, is Jesus Christ. That most of his drawings, where you see them, it seems as if is drawn in such a relatively comfortable position. Most times it's not like that, because the way your leg will be fixed in with the cross, most times is extremely very uncomfortable. that will just be allowing you to take survival breath. So as you are pulling your hand out from that fixture, you're also thinking of how you pull your leg. So if you pull your hand, for instance, if you pull your hand first, it means that you have to hold your hand on the frames of the cross so that you can be able to also pull your leg out from the frame, making it almost impossible. If you decide, okay, to first of all pull your leg out, because some people will say that it is the leg that has more strength or more energy than the hand, is also still almost the same equivalent, because most of the time the nail driven in the individual's leg is very long, and it has the capacity to hold the feet in a very strong position. So it's just as if we have like up to 1,000 kg placed on your leg, fixed on your leg at once, on your two legs, so that you are not able to get it out immediately. Supposing the individual on the cross has a very strong human capacity, because if you look at the story of Jesus' crucifixion, which of course many people are kind of ignoring, part of the criteria that the Jews used and mocked him or dared him while he was hanging on the cross, they told him that if you are the Christ, come down from the cross, and if you can be able to come down from the cross, we will believe you. So if an individual who was impaled on the cross on his fist and his legs can be able to drive himself out from that position and come down from the cross, it's an extraordinary feat already on its own, because it's such a discomforting position, and also considering the pain the person will endure, because as you are pulling your hand, you also stand the risk of rupturing your bone, your major bone, and so many things. So if you are able to endure the pain and pull yourself out from the cross and jump down, once you jump down, you have already performed a very unusual feat. And let me remind you that when you are already down, remember your feet is already very damaged, because the hole driven by the nail will prevent you from movement. So let's move over to the second big problem again. Let's take, for instance, the individual is down from the cross. Remember, every person that is crucified is a threat to Rome. So because the person is a threat to Rome, there at every point there will always be soldiers around, heavy guarded soldiers with a lot of ammunition, with spears, with knife, and with sword, and with bows that they can use and attack anybody that is trying to come and rescue the person, or if the person starts or chances of the person escaping. So there's always soldiers standing by, and soldiers can range from up to 100 to 150 of them standing as a standby, looking out for maybe threats that can come in during the process of crucifixion and even after the process of crucifixion. So those soldiers that are there, as you are immediately you come down from the cross, you face another big challenge. What is the challenge? The crucified victim most times is stripped naked. In fact, all the time is stripped naked, almost with nothing except your bare body. And most times your bare body is already has a lot of wound. And even if it's only with that wound of the nail driven your wrist and your leg, you may not be able to have enough strength or enough comfort to combat a like two soldiers that are fully armed from your position, because you're already very vulnerable. And what makes you vulnerable is your that, because you don't have any armor on your body, in fact you are naked. So you have to face the soldiers, because the soldiers must definitely come after you, and they must definitely want to overpower you and fix you back to the cross. So assuming you came down from the cross, the threat of the soldiers are still there.